Thanks for joining me today, Mr. and Mrs. Clark. Please have a seat, relax. And what I have in front of you is basically my recommendations in summary and the spreadsheets that mathematically I came to my conclusions with. So I got the facts from you, and I've got your priorities based upon our previous meetings. But today I want to quickly summarize those recommendations, show you how I arrived at those recommendations, and give you some further options that I described in other recommendations that you see at the bottom of my recommendation sheets. But I also wanted us to consider slightly reprioritizing the priorities that you gave me. I like them and they made a lot of sense, but there's one that stands out before all the others, and that's what should happen if you folks should pass away. It's not something we ever want to consider, and we hope would never happen, but we have to plan for the worst and hope for the best. So I need a certain priority is for you both to get together with a lawyer that you trust and create a testamentary will. That's a will that you've created while you're alive. And in it, you can name the guardian for your children, and that's critical. You folks have invested a huge amount of energy and time into your children, and they need to be taken care of should you not be here. So in the will, you can name a guardian. And also in that will, you can name a conservator who's going to look after the assets that have been aligned to your children. Remember that a will has to go through the public process. Probate's a public process. So only a judge can determine who's a guardian for your children. But by naming a guardian, he's going to give that a lot of weight when he makes that decision. So you've got to get that on writing. You've got to make sure it meets the statutes of the state and it can be probatable. So that's really critical. So I wanted to say that up front, right off the bat, so you folks understand that, given my experience, that this is really critical. Now, you can reprioritize that any way that you like, but I think it's critical. The second piece that you folks prioritized, or actually the first, was your retirement plan. And if you look at the spreadsheet that's before you, I looked at several different calculations. One based on just your savings, and two, and that's retiring at 62, like you had stated previously, and 80% of your income. So what is it going to take for us to save every year to get to 80% of your income based upon an investment rate of 7%, an inflationary rate of 3%? What's it going to take? Well, it's going to take a big figure, as you can see before you. So I then took a look at both your qualified and non-qualified assets, and I combined those with your additional savings for your retirement that you plan to put away, and still that's a sizable figure. So when we push it out to age 67, that's considered the normal retirement age for anybody born after 1960. So 67, it would be probably a more practical time for you folks to retire, given the time value of money, the 100% availability of Social Security or full retirement. Remember, at 62, it's only going to be 70%, but at your normal retirement age at 67, it's going to be 100% of what you're entitled to. So when we take a look at those calculations and we combine your qualified, that's your IRA, Kevin, and your 403b, Stephanie, from work, and probably your pension. I know you feel that's unreliable, but it probably is. It probably falls under the federal guaranteed benefit insurance. So you're probably going to be all right there. So maybe we should factor that in a little. So given all those factors, we're going to be able to narrow down how much you're going to be forced to save, or your objective to save every year to meet that 80% of retirement But remember, we're probably going to have to push that out to 67. And it's just the way the numbers work. But if you have any questions, I've got the figures right in front of your spreadsheets, and you can review those, and please ask me any questions. So that's the case for your retirement. I don't want to go over the specific numbers. You've got those in front of you in your spreadsheet that I've laid out. I've done it in detail. So review those. You can get back with me with any questions that you have regarding my projections as far as your needs go for retirement and what it's going to take for you folks to get there. Well, the next big question I think you folks had was the education for your children. And I've laid out another spreadsheet for you folks to take a look at too, based upon my projections. Current inflationary rate of tuition inflation, certain current costs of tuition now, the time value of money, all those are put together on the spreadsheets before you. But what's critical is that we have to investigate whether your state allows for or has a program for prepaid tuition. Because if we can get onto a prepaid tuition program for 3 of your children, remember that's going to we can remove that factor of inflation. It's not going to be there anymore. We're going to lock in those tuition prices and right now, and not have to worry about that inflationary cost. So that's going to be critical. The other sort of plans that we can put in place are really what are called qualified plans. And those are plans that the IRS deems to allow for tax deferred, or in some cases tax deferred growth. And I mentioned and briefly in the recommendation what I like. There's the Coverdell that you can use, but you're limited to. There's the 529 plan that you can sort of accelerate your gifting. And what I mean by it is that you can overfund that if you like. You're limited to $14,000 a year per person per year without incurring any gift taxes. Well, the both of you can do $28,000 per person. Well, obviously we don't have that much around in available cash, but whatever we can sort of budget for your children's education, we can sort of look toward the 529 plan for some tax-free growth. And we can probably get a little bit more flexibility out of the 529 plan, or we will get more flexibility out of the 529 plan. What it's going to allow is you'll be the owner. If one of your children decides not to go to college, you can reallocate that or realign that to the next child that does want to go to post-secondary education, college. So, and that covers just about anything that you want to apply it to, room and board, books, and tuition. So that 529 plan, is going to be critical to our overall plan to educate your children for college. And there's a really important recommendation that I covered in the written plan that I think is really important. And that's the fact that community college, if we look at the cost of community college, at least for the first 2 years for the children, and then on to the university or state school, we can save an enormous amount of money. The reason that I like that is that in the community college environment, I think your children have an opportunity to excel, that the peer group will not be nearly as competitive. They have an opportunity to get better grades at lower cost, and the first 2 years of an undergrad's education is all fundamental courses, and those courses easily transfer to most university and states. Now we can look at that more closely, but I bet they align very easily. So that's kind of a program that I think you folks should consider, is maybe 2 years of community college, 2 years at state, and the savings would be enormous. It'll cut it by 2/3 probably, if not more. Maybe 3/4, but I've outlined that in the spreadsheet, and you can take a look at that. So that's the kind of the really important piece that we've got to sort of work through, is that sort of mindset that this is what we want. Well, this is what's practical, and this is what's realistic. So let's sort of refocus and look through a different lens. The bottom line is your child's education. And it's up to them to make the most of it. You can set them on that path, but it's going to be up to them. You're going to work hard to get them to that maturation level, but there's going to be not much difference there between a community college and state in those first couple of years. So why not at least revisit that or visit that? Next thing you folks prioritize that I want to take a look at is your insurance. The insurance is important. There's a couple of ways that I think we can cut some costs by increasing your deductibles, both in house and automobile. I think you should raise the medical on your automobile and on your liability on your HO3, your homeowners. I think that can lower your cost considerably, even with raising your deductible. I think raising your deductible will easily make up for increasing your liability in both those policies. So those are the two really important points on your insurance. Now, for the life insurance, I created two spreadsheets for you folks. The human value approach, that's one way of tabulating exactly what your life insurance needs are. And the second approach is the needs approach. I've done both of you. I've done one of those for both of you. And those are important that we look at both of them because they give us sort of a second view of things. But I also want you to know that as big as those numbers are, they're probably realistic on what it takes to raise a family in today's environment. So, that's got to be a priority. And for a planner, it's always important that we protect what we have before we sort of invest in the future, because we've already spent a lot of energy getting to where we are right now. Let's protect it, and then we'll invest in the future. So I'm very big on insurance, as you can see, and I think it's a big component of your overall financial plan. Now, the other questions that I found during our discussions of discovery, I've outlined in other options. I'm not going to go over them in this presentation right now, but I'm going to let you read them at your leisure and get back with me on any answers that you might have. I've really enjoyed working with you, and I look forward to us sitting down regularly or whatever time frame that you'd like to monitor both your budgetary process and your progress toward reaching your objectives. So this will conclude our meeting today. Take care of your children, drive safely, and we'll see you next quarter. Thanks. Bye-bye.